Welcome to HFCL Time Machine. Past, present, future, all connected.
Let's step into today's chapter, where we explore how digital infrastructure powered the world's largest gathering, the Maha Kumbh 2025, and what it means for the future of large-scale connectivity, public safety, and smart event management.
It is genuinely a fascinating topic.
Right. I mean, picture this for a moment. You are standing in the middle of a crowd, so dense you can barely see where the sandy ground ends and the water begins.
Oh, absolutely. The sheer density is mind-boggling.
Exactly. And you pull out your phone to message your family, maybe send a photo of the Triveni Sangam, but your screen just shows that perpetually loading circle. Zero signal.
A classic mega event nightmare.
Basically, yeah. Now take that frustration and multiply it by 660 million people. That is the true scale of what we are unpacking today.
And that number is it's staggering, right? 660 million pilgrims over a 45-day period.
It is. We are looking at this monumental achievement by HFCL Limited, specifically their mobile data offload and wireless backhaul project. They essentially built the invisible digital foundations for a temporary megacity larger than the population of North America.
See, the density of that scenario is what makes this such an unprecedented engineering puzzle. Like, to put the bandwidth challenge into perspective, think of a typical packed sports stadium.
Okay, so maybe, 80,000 people?
Yeah, around 80,000 people. And telecom networks regularly buckle under just that pressure.
Oh, for sure. You can never text at a concert.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People cannot text, the card machines at the concession stands go down, and even emergency radios can get jammed.
Right.
Now, at the Maha Kumbh, you are taking that stadium, multiplying it by tens of thousands, and stretching it across 12 kilometers of open riverbank.
Which is just an immense physical space to cover.
Right. The technical hurdle isn't just about providing internet access. It is about figuring out how to construct a flawless, high-capacity network without laying a single permanent wire in the ground.
And we really need to explore the physical reality of this environment before we even get into the technology, Because calling it a telecommunications nightmare almost feels like an understatement.
Oh, it really does.
You are building this network at the sacred confluence of the Ganges, the Yamuna, and the mythical Saraswati rivers in Prayagraj.
Right.
This isn't some smart city with underground concrete utility trenches or permanent rooftops to mount cell towers. This is shifting river sand.
Absolutely zero permanent infrastructure.
Yeah. You are dealing with water, dust, heavy winter fog, and millions of temporary tents. Okay, let's unpack this. It sounds like trying to build a digital pop-up city the size of a small country, but doing it on a beach where the layout keeps changing.
That is actually the perfect analogy.
Okay.
The terrain is actively hostile to traditional networking.
How so?
Well, the topography of those riverbanks literally changes after every monsoon season.
Wow, really?
Yeah, which means the ground you surveyed a year ago might not even exist by the time the event starts.
Yeah.
The on-ground teams had to constantly replan their deployment maps.
That sounds incredibly stressful for the engineers.
It was. But the physical environment is actually the more manageable half of the equation, believe it or not.
Wait, what could be worse than shifting sand?
The truly chaotic variable is the unpredictability of human movement, specifically during the Amrit Snan.
Ah, right. The peak bathing days. The sources highlight these as the ultimate stress tests for the infrastructure.
Exactly. Those are the most auspicious days in the calendar. On a standard day, during the 45-day period, the network might be managing a massive but relatively steady baseline of users.
Okay.
But during an Amrit Snan, the behavioral patterns of the crowd shift completely. The data shows these sudden, localized surges where the crowd in the specific sector would explode.
Like, how big of an explosion are we talking?
From under 50,000 concurrent users to over 250,000 in a matter of mere hours.
That is a 5 times increase instantly.
Yes. The network architecture had to instantly absorb 25 times its initial load in a specific geographic cluster without dropping a single connection.
That level of localized load makes the 14-month planning phase mentioned in our sources sound incredibly daunting.
It was a massive undertaking.
I mean, how do you spend over a year planning a layout for a network when the geography of the riverbank keeps changing and the crowd acts like unpredictable tidal waves?
See, you have to engineer for absolute elasticity. The planning phase wasn't about mapping permanent fixtures. It was about designing a highly modular system.
Something that could be moved around.
Exactly. Something that could be deployed, relocated, and scaled up overnight. And the stakes governing this timeline were absolute.
Right, because the dates are locked in by astrology.
Exactly. The event opened on January 13th, 2025. There are no soft launches for a nationally and globally watched spiritual gathering, especially one that happens on this specific scale only once in 144 years.
Failure really wasn't an option.
Not at all. If the network crashes on day one, you don't just face angry consumers unable to upload videos.
Right. It was way more serious than that.
You lose critical public safety communication lines. Emergency medical routing goes blind. And crowd control protocols fail in a sea of humanity.
And to understand why a crash was almost guaranteed using standard technology, we have to look at the sheer physics of traditional cell towers, right?
We do, yeah. Cellular spectrum is finite.
Exactly. When you have lakhs of people crammed into a small area, all trying to connect to the nearest 4G or 5G tower, that tower is physically incapable of dividing its radio bandwidth into that many slices.
It just can't handle it.
The network doesn't just slow down, it essentially collapses under its own weight to protect the core hardware.
Precisely. The telecom operators knew the cellular grid would fail.
Which is why HFCL had to step in, right? To build a completely parallel, invisible infrastructure.
Yes, and the strategy they utilized is known as mobile data offload.
Okay, break that down for us.
Basically, instead of fighting a losing battle with cellular spectrum, HFCL bypassed the cell towers entirely. They deployed roughly 400 carrier-grade Wi-Fi access points across the event space.
So giant Wi-Fi routers?
Essentially, yes. These were strategically positioned at railway hubs, entry and exit points, and continuously along those 12 kilometers of bathing gats.
And how did the phones know to use them?
Well, when a pilgrim's phone struggled to find a cellular signal, the mobile operator's network would automatically and seamlessly transfer or offload that user's data traffic onto this massive Wi-Fi blanket.
That is so smart. And the volume of data moved through this offload is genuinely staggering.
Oh, the numbers are huge.
Over the 45 days, this temporary network handled 100 terabytes of data. That is over 90,000 gigabytes.
It is massive.
To put that into a daily perspective for you listening, that is the equivalent of continuously streaming 21,000 hours of high-definition video.
It really puts the scale into perspective.
It does. The daily data consumption started at roughly 150 gigabytes and skyrocketed to 2,700 gigabytes at the peak.
And 1,860% increase.
But wait, I have to stop here because anyone listening who has ever tried to connect to a free public Wi-Fi network at a busy airport or a stadium knows it is notoriously unreliable.
Oh, absolutely. Usually it's terrible.
Right. You get the little Wi-Fi icon on your screen, but nothing actually loads. So why didn't these 400 access points just buckle under the interference of a million devices screaming for a connection?
What's fascinating here is that they avoided that collapse through a mechanism called intelligent band steering.
Intelligent band steering. Okay, how does that work?
See, standard Wi-Fi typically operates on a 2.4 gigahertz frequency. The problem is that 2.4 gigahertz has great range, but it only has a few non-overlapping channels.
So it gets crowded fast.
Exactly. When you have thousands of devices in one area broadcasting on those same few channels, the radio wave interference becomes so chaotic that data packets collide and get destroyed in the air.
Like too many people shouting in a small room.
Yes.
Yeah.
The network terrorizes itself. However, HFCL's access points were designed to actively monitor the technical capabilities of every single device trying to connect.
So it isn't just passively accepting connections, it is actively interrogating the phones.
Precisely. When the access point detects that a smartphone is compatible with the 5 gigahertz band, which has far more channels and much higher capacity, it actively rejects that phone's attempt to connect on the congested 2.4 gigahertz band.
Oh, wow. It forces them over.
It essentially forces the device to switch over to the 5 gigahertz frequency. Yeah. By doing this, HFCL intelligently steered 80% of the network traffic onto the higher capacity band.
That is brilliant. It clears out the interference at the ground level.
Exactly, ensuring that both the older devices on 2.4 and the newer ones on 5 gigahertz have clear airwaves to transmit data.
Okay, that makes total sense for the connection between the user's phone and the access point on the pole. But that creates a massive secondary problem.
The backhaul problem.
Right. How is that data actually leaving the riverbank? If you have hundreds of Wi-Fi access points collecting 100 terabytes of data, you need to transport all of that heavy information back to the core telecom network.
You do.
Normally, you would use thick, high-capacity fiber optic cables running underground. But we established on Mine at 1 that you cannot dig trenches in the shifting river sand.
You definitely cannot.
And you cannot shoot 100 terabytes of data into the ether over a dusty, foggy riverbank without massive packet loss, right?
Actually, You can, if you use unlicensed band radios
Yeah.
or UBRs.
EBRs. Okay, what are those?
Since physical fiber was impossible, HFCL essentially created a wireless backhaul network. Imagine a high-speed digital bucket brigade operating just above the heads of the crowd.
A digital bucket brigade. I like that.
These UBRs are high-capacity, highly directional radio antennas capable of transmitting 1 gigabit per second.
Wow.
They take the massive data load accumulated by the Wi-Fi access points and beam it through the air, point to point, until it reaches a permanent hub connected to the operator's core network.
But dealing with physical line of sight across 12 kilometers of tents and crowds, especially with the heavy winter fog rolling off the Ganges in January, that seems incredibly risky for a data backbone.
It requires meticulous calibration for sure. These UBRs are weatherproof and ruggedized. They're engineered specifically to punch through environmental interference like thick fog, dust, and humidity without degrading the signal.
That is just incredible engineering.
It is. By creating this invisible, elevated data highway, they bypassed the ground entirely and maintained a 99.9% network availability throughout the event.
The logistics of that are fascinating. But the causal chain here introduces a massive new dynamic, doesn't it?
It does, yes.
By building this invisible high-capacity network to solve the data problem, you unintentionally create a completely different opportunity and risk.
Surveillance and privacy.
Exactly. A network blanketing 660 million people immediately becomes the ultimate backbone for physical surveillance, which is a necessity for public safety. But simultaneously, it becomes a massive digital privacy risk for every individual connecting to it.
Balancing physical security and digital sovereignty is basically the tightrope walk of modern infrastructure.
It really is.
This deployment was never just about giving people the ability to upload videos. It was fundamentally a public safety lifeline.
Right, you need to manage the crowd.
To secure a physical space that large, HFCL utilized enterprise-grade L2, managed switches. Think of these switches as incredibly intelligent traffic directors operating behind the scenes.
Okay, so they are managing the data flow.
Yes, they form the central nervous system for a massive surveillance architecture, routing data from vast arrays of CCTV cameras directly to a centralized video management system, the VMS.
And the VMS is the brain of the operation.
Exactly.
From what the sources outline, this system gave the Uttar Pradesh Police and the National Disaster Response Force, the NDRF, absolute situational awareness.
Which is crucial when dealing with crores of people.
Yes, in a crowd of that magnitude, if a bottleneck starts forming at a specific exit route, or if a medical emergency happens deep within the tents, ground patrols can't see it until it's too late.
They are completely blind on the ground.
But the VMS allowed law enforcement to conduct 204/7 real-time video analytics and crowd monitoring, turning thousands of camera feeds into actionable safety alerts.
The physical security results really speak for themselves. But you are right to flag the digital privacy concern.
It is the first thing I thought of.
For you listening, a natural question arises. If I connect my personal device to a massive public network engineered to monitor millions of people, am I surrendering my personal data?
Right. Does the network know who I am, where I am walking, and what I am doing?
The sources detail rigorous compliance protocols specifically designed to neutralize that risk. HFCL engineered the system so that they collected absolute zero personally identifiable information, or PII.
Okay, let's break down how that is actually possible, because if you are operating a public Wi-Fi network, Indian telecom regulations require you to authenticate users.
Yes, the regulations are strict.
You can't just have a completely open, anonymous network for security reasons, so how do you verify a user without collecting their personal data?
It comes down to compartmentalization. Everything was aligned strictly with India's Digital Personal Data Protection Act of 2023, the DPDP Act.
Okay, so legally they were bound by it.
Yes. When you connected to the network, HFCL's hardware did not process your identity. Instead, the authentication was routed instantly to the mobile operator's AAA servers.
AAA servers?
Yes, the authentication, authorization, and accounting servers. Think of the AAA server as a digital bouncer that checks with your telecom provider to confirm you have a valid registered SIM card.
I see.
The bouncer verifies your right to enter the network, but HFCL's infrastructure never takes a copy of your ID. They fulfill the regulatory requirements for public Wi-Fi without ever commodifying the user's personal data.
That structural separation is vital. It keeps the data in the hands of the telecom operators who already have the regulatory framework to protect it.
Exactly.
But what about the actual connection security? Public Wi-Fi is notoriously easy to hack. If someone sits in that crowd with a laptop, couldn't they intercept the traffic of the people around them?
Not on this network. They utilize WPA3 encryption across the board.
WPA3, how is that different from regular Wi-Fi?
Unlike older Wi-Fi standards, where a shared password meant shared vulnerabilities, WPA3 creates an individualized encrypted tunnel for every single device.
Oh, that is much safer.
Even if two people are connected to the exact same access point, their data is completely invisible to each other. Furthermore, the surveillance aspect, those thousands of CCTV cameras streaming high-definition video over the wireless backhaul, was locked down entirely.
I was going to ask about that because transmitting police surveillance footage over open radio waves sounds like a massive security vulnerability.
It would be if it were open. But they isolated the surveillance data into a strictly closed network loop, inaccessible from the public internet.
Okay, so it never touches the public web.
Right. And on top of that, every byte of video transmitted over those L2 managed switches was scrambled using AES-256 encryption.
That is military grade, isn't it?
It is. To understand AES-256, imagine taking a video frame, shattering it into billions of mathematical pieces, and shuffling them using a key so complex that it would take modern supercomputers millions of years to guess it.
Wow.
Even if a bad actor managed to intercept the radio waves flying through the air, they would intercept nothing but unbreakable static.
They successfully engineered a state of total physical surveillance without compromising a single byte of digital sovereignty. It is an incredible architectural feat.
Truly.
But as we look at the larger scope of our sources, the 45 days of the Maha Kumbh are just a proving ground. The ripple effect of this deployment is actively reshaping the future of India's digital infrastructure.
And there is a crucial detail here about the hardware itself that we haven't mentioned yet.
Oh.
Every single component we just discussed, the Wi-Fi access points, the unlicensed band radios, the managed switches, the complex video management system, every piece of it was 100% indigenously innovated and manufactured in India.
That is fantastic. It is the ultimate validation of the Make in India initiative.
Absolutely. They demonstrated on a globally scrutinized stage that domestic technology isn't just viable. It is capable of handling the most complex, high-density, critical infrastructure deployments on the planet.
And looking at what happens to that hardware on day 46 is equally important.
Yes, the sustainability aspect.
Right. Often when a mega event concludes, the temporary infrastructure is torn down and becomes massive piles of electronic waste. But HFCL specifically engineered this ecosystem to be modular and highly sustainable.
None of this equipment is going to a landfill.
Exactly. Because it was built to withstand the humidity, the sand, and the fog of the riverbanks, it is rugged enough to be permanently redeployed.
Where is it heading next?
The sources note that this exact hardware will be absorbed into India's smart cities mission. It will be integrated into mass transit hubs, railway stations, and regional airports.
That is brilliant. The temporary digital pop-up city essentially becomes a reusable digital blueprint for permanent urban infrastructure.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, when you zoom out from the specific hardware and look at the broader societal impact, you see the true core mission here, digital inclusion.
Yes, that is the heart of it all.
During the Maha Kumbh, millions of pilgrims traveling from deep, rural Indian people who might struggle to get a stable 2G connection in their home villages experienced flawless, high-speed broadband for the very first time.
They were making video calls to their families, streaming a once-in-a-lifetime spiritual moment flawlessly.
But the story doesn't end when they go home because HFCL is actively pushing this same technology out to those remote corners of the country.
The numbers on that expansion are just staggering. They're deeply involved in the National Bharatnet mission.
Right, that is the huge government initiative.
Executing projects designed to connect over 180,000 gram panchayats. That means dragging high-speed fiber and wireless backhaul to rural village councils, directly impacting around 400 million citizens.
That scale is hard to even wrap your head around.
They are actively rolling out broadband and infrastructure to over 6.4 lakh villages across the country.
And they're also leveraging the PM1E framework to solve the last-mile connectivity problem, aren't they?
They are. Taking these same ruggedized, high-capacity Wi-Fi access points, powering them with solar energy, and installing them in remote rural clusters that lack basic 3G or 4G cell towers.
Solar-powered Wi-Fi, that is amazing.
The transformation in these communities is instantaneous. The data shows that in some of these newly connected villages, the daily data consumption skyrocketed from a baseline of just 2 gigabytes a day to over 200 gigabytes almost overnight.
That jump from 2 gigabytes to 200 gigabytes isn't just people watching more videos.
No, not at all.
That data represents a fundamental shift in opportunity. It represents a rural clinic utilizing high-speed internet to consult with specialists in Delhi through telemedicine.
Exactly. It means local children accessing the exact same digital education platforms as students in Mumbai.
It allows local farmers to engage with digital banking and online marketplaces without needing to travel physically to a major urban center. The network comes to them, completely altering the economic trajectory of the community.
It democratizes access to the modern economy, right? When you synthesize the entire scope of what was achieved here, it fundamentally shifts our baseline expectation of what infrastructure can accomplish.
It really does, maintaining 99.9% uptime for an ocean of humanity.
Offloading mountains of data through intelligent routing.
And securing physical safety while rigorously defending personal privacy. It proves that flawless, massive-scale digital inclusion is not a theoretical pipe dream.
It is an engineering reality today.
For you listening, it highlights the immense power of these invisible digital foundations. They don't just transmit zeros and ones, they are the great equalizers of opportunity in the 21st century.
See, it shows that when the engineering is thoughtful and the execution is flawless, technology truly serves the human experience rather than hindering it.
It leaves a powerful precedent for the future.
It really leaves you with a profound thought, If we have the capability to engineer a flawless, zero downtime digital city on the shifting sands of a riverbank for 45 days, effectively bringing 660 million people into a seamless digital ecosystem, what is stopping us from applying that exact same ingenuity to permanently close the digital divide in every remote corner of the globe?
And that brings us to the end of this chapter in the HFCL Time Machine. Until next time, stay connected to what's next.
You've been listening to HFCL Time Machine. For more conversations like this, find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube.